got a comment about how do we do LED walls in an Ascender. So let's take a look at that. So I've got a simulation running here, 32 4K. We'll launch the RCS, and we'll cover a few things, but our main scenario here is that we got a wall here, 8 by 5 Unilumin DB 2.6s, which I remember them as 196 by 196. Could be wrong, don't care to check, which gives us 1568 by 980. So that's what we're going to start on. And let's go back here. So setup, a lot of the stuff doesn't change. So I think 60 hertz generally looks better. I can see 30 hertz. A lot of people can't. You know, it really kind of depends on what you're doing and how much processing. So you might need to go 30 hertz. Usually there isn't a penalty in running it the internal rate at 60 and then switching to 30. I believe you do end up with some more latency, but it's most corporate work it's negligible. If you were running iMag, I would probably pick the matching with the cameras. Just be careful. A lot of processors, they want 60 or 30, or they just want 60, or I guess 50 and 25. So 59 and 29 tend to not work as well with a lot of processors, but it kind of just depends. So no link. So on the output side, well, in this case we don't need to go do 4K, so I'll look back and look at 4K what we do, because that's kind of a minor change in this case. Screens here, we'll just go LED and then whatever delay, and we don't actually care about any of the other ones. Inputs, I don't think there's any actual settings we care about here. Yeah, so just all these settings, do as normal. So output 1, this is our LED. So internal rate, so we're sending 1080p at 60. What you right now, analog type, digital type, you want to typically send RGB. So the YUV, that's gonna chroma subsample. So your color information is basically shared across 2 pixels. So it's some LED walls will show it, some won't, but generally RGB, and then full range is typically what you want. And this also means that you're not running it through SDI. This means that you want to get an HDMI or DVI connection to the processor. So that's that. There's not really HDCP. Probably always want it off. And like reminder, you got quick setup here. You can turn off HDCP for everything. And sometimes, so because I've toggled one now, it like auto toggled. I don't know if that's a difference in the simulator versus the actual hardware. I'm using the simulator right now. But you turn those off down there. Really useful. Gonna keep stressing it every one of these videos. So here, really, the main thing we care about here is the area of interest. So right now, the way that this would look like on the LED wall is, well, this is set up at 4K, but basically we would be sending our full screen out, and it would crop out to here because we're sending the full 1920 by 1080. But that's not what we want. We want the 1568 by 980, which is shorter. So in this guy, in order to get that, we go area of interest and then fill the output active. We uncheck that, and now we have control over it. So yeah, so you can drag it, like if you really wanted to. You can reposition it. So like, if your LED tech actually decided to put them all the way out here, well, yeah, all right, well, if they, in this case, if they were, not corner justified. What does this button do? Offset? I don't even know. Whatever. You could change it like that. Generally, I recommend just keeping it top left and then adjusting here. So 15. Oh wow, we almost got it. 1568 by what? Cool. So that is our screen. So now if we output this to the Nova processor, we're going to have, we don't have to do anything here. It's, top left justified and there. And what that looks like, why we do this is now when we go in here, well, let's go to live. See how this is a different aspect ratio? So this is now, like our entire program on that screen is set to the area of interest that we just set. So it's no longer 16:9, it's the whatever 16:10 I think this works out to. Um, so that's kind of how you do that. In this case, let's say this was we actually had like a bit of scenic around this, so we're actually like cropping this down now to an actual 16:9. Um, what we would want to do there is actually let's take this is so 1960 times what is it 8. So we get that, and then we want to multiply, divide by 1.777, and we get 882. So compared to 980, in order to get 16:9, we need to take off, what is that, 98 pixels? So, so in the simulator, it doesn't let you click on this. I believe in the hardware, you are able to click this and just input numbers. So, but we want 820 or 882. Oh my gosh. There. Cool. So now, depending on where our actual like physical mask is, maybe we need to bump it down. So like let's say we have, this is pretty much centered, and we're just going to pretend like the side edges line up perfectly with our opening in the scenic, and then we're just cropping off the top and bottom. So then all we do is like the vertical position, and we just drag this down into place. So let's say if we also had the sides cropped in a little bit, then we would do that calculation on it'd be a little bit more advanced calculation. So we would probably take the, was it 15? I've already forgotten. 6 times 8. That, and then we would have to figure out, so this is 8 meter, no, not 8 meter, no, 4 meter wall. So we would divide this by 4 meters and then figure out how much actual like bezel is being cut off of the sides, subtract that, and then multiply the 1.77 to get our height, and then we would set our width to the calculated like actual visible area. So that's there. But for now, we'll pretend like the edges line up because I don't want to do math. So yeah, then we just drag to wherever it actually lands up, and we'll pretend it's there. And dragging it doesn't actually change anything with how, like, this is completely ignoring all of this empty area. Like this, if this was over here, nothing would change. Like if you need to, like during the show, some very strong person comes up and just moves your entire LED wall over. Like, I mean, in this case, like they could only move it up and down, but all your memories, all your master presets are still going to work because all the program actually cares about is your aspect ratio. So like these measurements, not these. So that's how I do that. That's kind of the easy way. There is another way, so let's just go here again. So we'll go to custom format. So let's pretend like instead of just a nice easy 8 panels, let's say we like, let's see if I can, nope, and I don't use Nova often enough. Yeah, there we go. So let's pretend like we built a wall, well, let me actually, 9, yeah, we'll just pretend like this. So now we're at 16, oh no, times 196, Actually, we're gonna not do that. We're gonna do like that. So 12. 96 times 12. Cool. So this now is above 1920. So now we're into like a 4K workflow, or dual link in this case. Um, we'll keep the same height just because that still works. So there's no way to do this out of just one processor unless you're doing some sort of scaling externally. So when we have these resources, you have a maximum processing of 1920 by 1200. Um, the there's some limits here. Basically, you can go up to 2048 by 1200, but you know we're past that. So now what we need to do is actually we got to move it over to output 2. Um, and well, actually, I guess we could do it on 1 because we're using dual link in this case, but we'll keep it dual link 4K just because then I can also show you 4K. So, doing this while we already had stuff set up. So now screen 1 is just gone. You only have screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, which is fine. So this just goes away. I mean, I guess if you wanted to have it clean, like you could put output, you could just move all of these up. Output 1 is disabled because it is being used. We could do that down to 3, just keep it really doesn't matter. Whoop. And I mean, now it's lines up nicely. Cool. So we'll go back to outputs. So now output 1, we're still, well, actually, let's set it up here. Sorry. Oh, no, sorry, I'm getting lost. Here we go. Once you change one thing on me, it all disappears. So output 1, this is the one that's disabled, so we're not touching it. Output 2 here, so internal rate, so we're still at 60. Now we have a few more options. So in 60 hertz, because the Ascender series doesn't do 4K at 60 unless you're using all the resources, where you can only do 4K at 30. So when we're internal rate, actual 4K doesn't show up. So what we end up with is these half 4Ks, or you end up with these like dual link options, so 2560 by 1080, which doing this would totally work. So a 4K processor should be able to read this, and well, a 4K processor that has a dual link connection should be able to read this, and then we can do the same area of interest and just drag this down to what our new sizing is, so somewhere there-ish. So that would totally work. Thing to remember though is that this now it's showing up as dual link. You're not getting this as a single like HDMI cable. Like this is an actual dual link with all the pins DVI connection, which gets really tricky. Most of the new processors don't like this. It gets really finicky. I know with the M Control 4Ks there were two versions of it. Some where there's no way to tell except for the serial number, but like if it ends in a certain letter, then it can do dual link. If it doesn't, then it's just 4K. It can't do dual link. And there's no other way to tell beyond the serial number. I think most of those have been phased out of the U.S. rental market, but who knows? Um, so, but if you were doing it this way, like that's how you do it, and then I'll show you custom formats as well. So custom formats here, you're just deciding whatever you want to do. So let's just call this one 12 by 5 dB 2.6. Cool. Mode CVT full. I'll admit I have no idea what the real difference is here. CVT tends to work. Full, you get more options. I try CVT first, and then if it doesn't, aimlessly deal with full, but usually CVT will work. So frame rate here, let's go, we'll leave it at 60 pixels. Forget what we had. 2352, 2352 by 980. Use blankings. Sometimes toggling between them will work a little bit better, but we'll check this. Cool. Single link needs to be dual to use it. So in this case, single link, this is able to, well, interesting. Generate a single link. So I'm not sure if you could actually output this over an HDMI. It sort of depends. So within the, what this is saying is within the Ascender, it needs dual link processing, but it sounds like it's sending out an HDMI, like a single link of data. So you could just run this into like the HDMI port. You don't actually need the dual link. But I think if we went 1080 tall, let's check this. Cannot be rotated. Yeah, so in this case, now we're above the actual dual link. So I think what this actually is that at 980, we are below the actual like limit. So like the actual full-on pixel limit is 2048 by 1200. So that many pixels, and if you multiplied these values, you would get below that. So that's why it's able to do it. Whether or not the processor will actually be able to read this, TBD. You're gonna have to try it. You might have to reduce blanking, or you might have to switch to full. And so the polarity sometimes, sometimes they'll play nice with all negative. Sometimes they'll play nice with all positive. I wouldn't touch the lines. So the lines and pixels, you want to set those to what you are. A lot of times you'll have more success by having this be divisible by 8. So in the EDID standard, all your numbers need to be divisible by 8. So, if you're for whatever reason, like with LED tiles, you're really never going to have it not be divisible by 8, but like maybe as a checksum, like divide this by 8, check. When you're doing custom like input EDIDs for the Ascender, it's kind of a critical step to divide by 8 and make sure that your numbers are round divided when divided by 8, because otherwise you're most likely going to have problems. So cool, we're going to save. Oh wait, I did that. I'll just go back to this. I mean, I guess this doesn't matter. Single lane, cool. So now, critical thing to remember is this is 60 hertz. So the way we get this is internal rate, so we're at 60, and it's going to show up here as custom. And then when we go, so now, our preview and program, they just show up as what we want it to be in here. So it shows up as that aspect ratio. Whether or not it actually connects, trial and error. But interestingly, we have all the layers, and that's a function of this being single link. Even though it's so wide, all our layers show up. If this ended up being dual link, we would lose half the layers on this one. Cool. So that's custom formats. Now let's just go to custom 2. Don't even care anymore. So here, let's say we're at 30, and let's say 3840, and we're at like 1200 this time. This is a much bigger screen, so we check single link, needs to be dual link, cool, save. So now if we do this, one thing, I'm scrolling here, it doesn't show up. The reason why it doesn't show up is because we're still in 60 hertz. So in order for it to even show up, we need to switch down to 30. It's giving us an error here because this is a 60 hertz. But now when we scroll around, well, I think we switch over to a different one. Whoa, what is going on? And did we not save? Or did I not save? Save. Interesting. So normally it should be showing up here. Let's just try and, I guess, back it off a little bit. Check, save. Hmm. Well, I'm thinking this is a, simulator glitch because there should be way more options here. Um, so there are a lot of things that work that don't quite work in the simulator, even though they should. Let's just try dropping. Because we're at 30. Yeah, no, nothing's showing up. Okay, well that's just, yeah, it's also there. So something broke on the simulator here that it's now not showing, but in 60 hertz we're back to this. So um, thing to keep in mind, especially when you're actually in like the 4K, is if you want to output as an HDMI once you're in 4K, you need to switch it over to 30 hertz because that's the like 4K. That's what the Ascender can do on a single plug in 4K without needing to basically pull all the resources over into one, and now you can do 4K at 60 hertz here. So when you select this, your 4K is limited to 30 hertz or 60 hertz, but at like a dual link resolution. There's only so many pixels this thing can push. I feel like that's kind of, yeah. I think that's mostly all the question. Yeah, that's how I would do it. Cool. All right. Well, that's that.